Hi, my name's Diane Norden, and I'm the representative from the Sheep and Goat Health team, and I will be giving you the information on writing your cooperative agreement for sheep, goat, cervid, and equine. So let's get right into it. Our first topic is the sheep and goat surveillance goals. So surveillance is to be conducted in accordance with the National Scrapie Surveillance Plan, and the link to that plan is in your agreements guide. The goals of the National Scrapie Surveillance Plan are to eradicate classical scrapie from sheep and goats in the United States, to document the eradication of classical scrapie, and to achieve scrapie-free status as per the OIE, World Organization of Animal Health standards. To meet the OIE guidelines for freedom, a country or region must conduct surveillance for at least 7 years with a 95% confidence of detecting scrapie at a prevalence of 0.1% of the target population, with no case of classical scrapie reported during the period. To give you an update of where we are in the United States, we haven't had any scrapie investigations so far in fiscal year 20, and in recent years we've had between 1 and 2 infected source flock investigations. We're especially interested in increasing the number of goats submitted for surveillance testing. And I do want to point out that we are no longer targeting blackface sheep, monadels, or South Down breeds of sheep. So all sheep are considered as the targeted population, regardless of age. If you have questions about what types of sheep we're looking for, please contact your designated scrapie epidemiologist for your state. So samples can be collected either on the farm or at slaughter. I want to talk first about on-farm testing. On-farm testing, you can do necropsy samples or live animal samples. So you can collect and submit necropsy samples from scrapie suspects or age-eligible found dead animals. To do this, you can have your personnel go out and collect these samples, or you could give boxes that USDA will provide and give those to producers to ship in heads found from adult found dead animals to our centralized collection facility in Remington, Indiana. In Remington, we have personnel that will collect the samples and submit the samples for testing. You can also conduct live animal testing, rectal biopsy, of producer animals or animals found at markets. And the live animal testing, we want to restrict that to states that are struggling to meet their sampling minimums. Your sampling minimums and progress towards those, there's a link towards the surveillance minimums in the recipient guide. I want to give a little bit of information about what you can pay for in cooperative agreement and what's already provided by USDA and should not be included in the cooperative agreement. So USDA will pay for boxes, the shipment of boxes, all the laboratory costs associated with the testing, IHC testing and genotype testing, because we have existing contracts for those. And we can supply those, the physical things to you, and the laboratory costs are already covered. Most collection supplies can be attained through the NVSL and shouldn't be included in your cooperative agreement costs. So acceptable expenses would include personnel costs and supplies such as needles or disposable gloves, lidocaine gel, anything that's not provided by NVSL that you need to collect samples. If you have other ideas of obtaining surveillance samples, we'd certainly be interested in evaluating those too. So please work with me, Diane Norden, or Dr. Chuck Gazer, my counterpart in North Carolina, and we can talk through your strategy and make adjustments. Please work with your state DSE for details on sample collection, obtaining collection supplies, sample shipment, which laboratory to use. We have all kinds of SOPs and manuals available to step you through the process. So please reach out to us if you need us. So the other source of samples is from slaughter plants. So you can use agreement funding to pay for your state personnel salaries to go to slaughter plants and collect and submit samples. Or, and this is less preferred, we'd prefer that agreements with slaughter plants be made through the federal office, but you could do this through a cooperative agreement to pay slaughter plants to do one of four different options. Option one would be the slaughter plant could submit whole heads to Remington or to another centralized collection facility, i.e. your state veterinary lab, for collection and submission. Another option would be to pay the slaughter plant to store whole heads, and then your personnel would come by later and collect and submit those samples. A third option would be for the slaughter plant to pay them to remove heads, but without cold storage, if you had state employees ready and available to collect those samples where the storage would not be needed. And option four would be the plant does it soup to nuts. They collect and submit the tissues. We'd prefer them to also do the VSLS data entry, but there might be some, we can entertain state personnel entering those samples into our submission database, or our online submission, the Veterinary Services Laboratory submission website. So the statements of work and templates exist for these sampling agreements, the four options I mentioned above. Note that they will need to be modified. They are based on federal use, so they refer to U.S. agreements with USDA and APHIS, so you'll need to modify those. In those templates, there's comment sections that include the cost guidelines for each of the options. So if you want to know how much is, we're kind of looking at per head to store heads, it's in each of those option documents. Personnel costs can be included for the time spent visiting slaughter plants to get them signed up as an RSS site, so keep that in mind. And again, other surveillance strategies, we can surely consider those. And again, remember that the testing costs and the sample collection supplies are already provided by USDA and shouldn't be included in the cooperative agreement. So for reporting of these activities, for the we have two tables in your agreements guide for that you can use to report. They're not mandatory to use these templates, but they're available for your use, so have an idea of what we're looking for. One is for the non-RSS activities, surveillance reporting, and a similar one for slaughter surveillance, RSSS activities and surveillance reporting. And those are in your guide. Remember to include only those activities that are paid for through the cooperative agreement. So don't mix in the state and federal activities. They're often combined, it's a joint program. So we really just want you to focus on what's paid for through the cooperative agreement. And these reports are due quarterly as part of the cooperative agreement quarterly report. So this one, next slide that's just the RSSS reporting, pretty simple. Number of animals sampled, number of samples entered into the VSLS, the online submission website, number of positive flocks identified, RSSS and potential RSSS sites visited for purposes other than sample collection. I need to try to talk to them about becoming an RSS sites, and the number of new RSS sites added. Okay, the next topic is the sheep and goat cervid and equine education and outreach goals. We'd like you to use education and outreach to increase the ID and record keeping compliance for sheep and goats, for reporting and submission of animals with clinical signs of, for example, CWD, scrapie, FADs, are high impact emerging diseases in sheep, goats, cervids, and equines. Submission of found dead mature sheep for scrapie testing, provide education on that, and producer awareness of how to use genotyping and other strategies to prevent scrapie introduction. For reporting of those activities, if a presentation was made, we pretty much just want to know who you talked to, how many were there, what educational materials were provided, what method of outreach was used. Was it flyers? Was it a talk? Did you sit at a booth? If you created any materials for this outreach activity, we'd like to have a copy of that, and the name, meeting, location, organization holding any meeting that you attend. If a presentation wasn't made and you did some other activity like received education, again, just pretty much what you did. Name an organization of who provided the training or hosted the meeting, why you attended, who attended, where and when you attended, the outcome, and if there was an agenda, please provide that. Okay, so sheep and goat cervid preparedness and response objectives. Your activities in this category could include conducting disease response activities, increasing the number of flocks in the database, in the SES Scrapie database, and the percentage of those that use official identification, and for monitoring and enforcing ID and record keeping compliance at concentration points. Remember that cooperative agreement funding should not be used to purchase official tags or taggers. Okay, so SGCE preparedness and response reporting. We have a templates available in your recipient's guide. Please provide the disease of interest and the activity performed. And for the ID compliance, we have two different reports, depending on if the state or the cooperator is doing all the inspections at a given concentration point. You can summarize those, and each column in the spreadsheet, the compliance report can represent a market, for example, a given market. So you can summarize all the activities for the quarter done at that given market. If you do not do all the inspections at a given concentration point, we'd like you to list, there's a different compliance report template for that, and in that each column represents an actual visit. So each column is a visit to a concentration point or an inspection. So we want all the individual inspections rather than have them summarized. Your DSE has been provided training on completion of these ID compliance reports, and if they have questions, they can come right to Dr. Kaiser and I, and we can also answer questions regarding completions of these reports, either directly or from your designated scrapie epidemiologist.